he uses the board as his canvas to produce beautiful paintings, whether it's bullet or blitz or classical. And look at this checkmate on g4.
That is sick.
He's the only person in the world who can display such a level playing instantly the entire game. The first 30 minutes of this match are absolutely crucial if Vidit wants to defy the expectations. I think that he's got it in himself to, at the very least, give Magnus a difficult match, and there we go. Now queen takes c4, eats into white's center. It doesn't win a pawn, Robert, because white will be able to take on c6, but that seems like a better endgame for black.
Of course, white has this isolated pawn on d4. The c7 weakness is defended by a bishop. Now the question becomes, does black go bishop b6 to hit d4? He says, no, I'll go rook e2 first. But is bishop g3 an impending threat? And is black in a bit of danger on the c7 square?
And the position went from clearly better for black, maybe slightly better for black, to perhaps now borderline winning for white. Magnus dropping back to c4, reinforcing the d4 pawn. I think Vidit is trying to get his knight around to a6, so he's found a way to defend the c7 pawn. The thing is, Robert, that's not the only problem in black's position. In fact, that's one of a million problems in black's position. Both rooks are in danger of getting crushed here.
What is he considering here? I mean, he's about to lose on time. He's down under 10 seconds. Vidit needs to make a move. Whoa.
c5, but knight c6 resigns. That doesn't solve anything.
I think he just overlooked it. He could still go knight c6. I don't get it.
Take the bishop, and you're up a piece, and you win the game?
Yeah. It is resignation. It is over. Game one. Magnus Carlsen takes his first lead of the match, and unfortunately for him, Magnus is out to a good start. But anything can still happen because the time controls, this is only the first one. It's a long match. And Danya, in this position, Magnus has great experience from his world championship. But Vidit, he must have some ideas of his own. Magnus seems to understand these positions well. And once again, he's up a minute and a half on the clock.
Vidit instead takes a slower approach. He gets his queen out to c2.
He earned a question mark 2 turns in a row. I understand the idea, but a queen trade should not help white. A rook may land on the 7th rank, but unless you're winning e5 by force, that outside pass pawn looks way too much. And even if you do win e5, you open up the bishop on g7.
And now I think Magnus will stick the bishop on b2, and the game will largely be over.
If he played bishop g7, white plays d4, but he puts the bishop so that nothing can get in its path. a3. A2, A1, I don't think you can quite pre-move it, but what can white do to possibly stop it?
When you're playing Magnus, nothing seems to be on the right spots at the wrong time. Rook c1, another collinear move, hitting the knight, and then the bishop is going to snake into d3. That's going to be the final nail in the coffin. Magnus is enjoying himself right now. Bang, and Vidit is going to let his time run out. What a positional masterpiece by Carlsen with the black pieces. He holds a 3-point lead.
Right now, Magnus Carlsen has a 4-point lead over Vidit Guzrathi. He is just cruising, but it's been a bumpy ride. That's been clear. But somehow Vidit, even when he's up a pawn, he just can't put Magnus away because Magnus is that resourceful. Look at this position. Vidit, it says he's got a winning advantage. The bar is very high up there. Is bishop takes d6 just that strong?
And I think Magnus has overlooked it. Bishop b5, bishop d6, bishop c6, and Magnus thinks, I'm safe. If you take, I take, but bishop e7 first. And only now do you take on c6. Boop, boop. Black is going to drop an exchange, and Vidit missed it. He was winning on the spot with bishop takes d6.
But
and
what
this
here?
wins a piece. What's going on in the game? Rook d1, knight e4. What is happening?
And he
bishop
is
c2.
Not allowing the white king up the board. That is essential.
That was gorgeous, Robert. First, the bishop was on d5. Then it landed on c2. In either case, the square that you always want to control is e4. If you control e4, the pawn controls d4, and the rest is obvious. He mouse slipped. What did he just do?
Oh, he allowed the king up.
Why did he go bishop e3?
He made a
and now he's losing.
Mistake. Yeah, he's losing because the white king just gobbles up the pawns.
And he resigns. Unbelievable. That was incredible persistence from Vidit. He missed a win earlier in the game, but it didn't matter. He wins in the end. He pulls a Magnus on Magnus himself, and he sets the tone for what needs to be a highly successful 3+1 segment. Great final game.
Danya, heading into the 3+1 here, do you think that Vidit's going to mix up his openings because he can't keep the status quo?
I think he should. In general, I always err on the side of mixing up the openings and trying to get different positions, particularly if you're on the losing side of the match. If you're Magnus, he can play literally anything, and he is playing literally everything. This is a typical plan in such positions, is carrying out e2, e4, which is clearly what Magnus is preparing. First, he's got to decide where to put his queen. He puts it on b4. Black's control over the e4 square is impressive, and Magnus is, again, struggling to create chances on the other side of the board. He's got 2 seconds on his clock as well. He's losing. F5 was missed there, winning the exchange. All-out time scramble.
This Black has all the control. E4, en passant, take that thing. He didn't take it.
That thing. He didn't take it, and he's allowed Magnus to establish a pawn chain in the king side, and now the situation getting more complicated. Oh my goodness, now it's completely pandemonium.
But the F5 is loose, and he goes D3. What a shot!
Oh my goodness.
He cuts the queen off from the F5 square, and now E6
and he
drops.
Takes E6.
Black's up 2 pawns.
And this should be a technical win now. Still not over, though. There's a pin along the e-file that Vidit has to solve, and he solves it with a check. But now Magnus's king is walking into the center, and it's still not over. King f6, walking out of the checks and advancing his pawns. I think you called it, Robert. I think the right idea is just to advance these pawns methodically, carefully, without blundering anything. But with all of his pieces on dark squares, there we go. That's it. Finally, Magnus succumbs. And what a win to start the 3+1 segment. 2 in a row now for Vidit Gujarati. Vidit activates his rook 0.6 seconds as Magnus seeks counterplay against the pawn. Can he hold a draw here?
He would be so fortunate. The black knight can come to d4 at any moment, but white might win king of the hill and stay in this game with the white king going to e4.
It goes back instead to g2. This is still, Robert, a 3-result game. If Magnus can go after the h-pawn and he dies, and Vidit blundered it.
But what's going on with this b-pawn? Which pawn is getting there faster?
The h-pawn. Magnus is going to win again. And he simply wins by resignation.
No, he won on time.
On time.
Even worse.
On time. But he's winning in the final position.
Wow, Magnus Carlsen down a pawn, but it's not about the quantity, it's about the quality. His h-pawn gets to the other side. He leaps out of his chair, and you see it. The Champions Chess Tour chair there. He currently leads by 4 points. It's been a close match, but it's 9-5 in Magnus' favor. Vidit has diversified his repertoire in recent years, and at the Tata Steel India Rapid and Blitz, Rajabov, Vichy, many people were praising Vidit as becoming a different and improved player in these last few years.
I think Magnus has to castle queenside by hook or by crook.
And he has to do it now. Look at his clock. He's down to 25 seconds. He's spending way too much time.
Look at Magnus. He sacrifices a piece. And that's a great practical idea. Bishop takes b2. He's going to pick up a bunch of pawns. And at the very least, he's going to develop some intrigue in this game.
Great decision. I think it's the only try he had where he felt like he had a puncher's chance. E6 is a good one.
The guy never dies.
He never does. Rook c1, again, is on the agenda, but e7 is what white has.
But how is it that Vidit suddenly has to calculate variations? He's down to 10 seconds. Rook c1 is a threat. Then rook takes b1 and rook d1. Now, wait a second. Rook a1?
Oh my gosh, rook e7. And white has 200 pieces for a rook. Is there a checkmate? Is there going to be a game over at any point here?
I think that you can trade queens. Probably that's the simplest with 3 seconds on the clock. But can you even trade queens? And where does Black's king escape to? Yes, you can. You can force the queen trade. Just watch.
This is well done, though. D7, and I think we're not going to get any kind of stalemate. This looks like game over. It is indeed. 3 points separate these two. And Magnus, he expects the most from himself. He did probably expect that Vidit would be a fighter, but 10-7, I don't think our community could have expected this. This going into the bullet really gives Vidit a legitimate shot.
We're underway with a Grunfeld Slav and one of the most boring openings in all of chess, Robert.
And he wants that pass pawn.
He does, and he's going to get it.
Uh-oh. Donnie, this looks really good for Magnus.
It's the fact that Black can't put a rook on b8. This is killer. It's killer because now Magnus is going to grab the b file.
and there's nothing that Vidit can do about it. He grabs the B file, the 6th rank, and past C pawn. What does exactly does black have in return? Pawns all in light squares.
Ugh. The most debilitating thing, Magnus still has 32 seconds. He has a full complement of half his time. He doesn't need any of it. He's playing instantly. He's playing powerfully. And Robert, we could confuse this for a 5+1 game. Such was the level that Magnus displayed in that endgame. He's the only person in the world who can display such a level playing instantly the entire game.
Vidit does. Wow, if Vidit can get this win, it's back to 3, and Vidit's trying to show him that I can hang with you in bullet chess.
But he's got to continue playing accurately, and Magnus is activating his rook. It's going to get scary, Robert, with the rooks, the piggies coming to the 2nd rank. Magnus is probably going to recover at least 1 pawn, and he's going to have practical drawing chances here. Good ones at that. Vidit holding on. He's playing super accurately to hold on. Magnus could throw in h3, but he's saving that move for a rainy day.
Whoa, Vidit's down. Making his moves. Oh, he's barely getting his moves off.
Oh my gosh, and that pawn is still stuck. King g2, gotta move. No, he flagged.
He flags. He needed his king over on g2, but Danya, he couldn't move his mouse in time.
Oh man, what a heartbreaker. What a great positional game by Vidit to start that endgame, and then suddenly, snap of a finger. I can't snap, but if I could, I'd make the snapping noise just to symbolize how quickly Magnus is able to turn these endgames around. He plays worse endgames for a win, and he is the only player in the universe who does that with total regularity across all time controls. And what we take for granted so often in Magnus's play is I really like to draw attention to how he plays on both sides of the board. It produces an aesthetic effect even to someone who barely knows the rules of the game. Look at how one move is on the queen side, then the other on the king side, then the other in the center. He uses the board as his canvas to produce beautiful paintings, whether it's bullet or blitz or classical. And look at this checkmate on g4.
That is sick.
Amazing game.
And you were being so descriptive. I felt like I was watching that be painted. And that final move, that final position, it's a photo finish. It's picturesque. It's another win for Magnus Carlsen. Magnus really can be a table base sometimes. Mm-hmm. He just knows when to make a transition. A lot of us, including myself, or especially myself, were suggesting that no, you can't trade that knight for that bishop, opposite colored bishop. That should be a draw, right? He says, no, I have this scoped out. He gets another win. And Danya, Vidit's still playing really well. It's just not going his way down the final stretch.
I don't mean this in a condescending way at all. Rather, to further our understanding of what makes Magnus brilliant. But I think it's hard to fully grasp the extent of Magnus's knowledge until you face him in, let's say, a bullet match. That's when you realize that the guy makes decisions in a millisecond that you genuinely might not have been able to make in a classical game. And it's all based on just such an almost spiritual feel for the position that's very hard to describe. And, that is why we refer to Magnus as a once in a generation, perhaps once in a lifetime talent. It's that insane feel that almost never lets him down. He takes b2, Magnus takes d5, and again, the clock situation starting to impact the game. Bishop a2, another great move. Knight e5, and white's winning. Rook a7 wins a piece, and Magnus is going to take the last one.
Wow, but c3 is a sudden threat. Doesn't
Knight
go
d4
for it.
Apparently is the only move.
And found?
Knight f5, takes the rook, wins the game, wins the match.
With a knight fork to win another one. Magnus Carlsen has officially won this match 17.5 to 8.5. The final score does not do Vidit Gujrati justice, but Magnus, even though he was given a fight, he's proven that he has too much might.
There were a couple of bumpy moments. There was some unexpected turbulence, but he had his seatbelt on the entire time. Magnus takes this match by 9 total points.
So Magnus Carlsen with a 9-point match victory. He moves on to the quarterfinals where he awaits the winner of a match that has not taken place yet. So we do not know who Magnus will square off against in the next round, which is the quarterfinals. So